Beyond the buzzer, inside the game, this is Sports IQ with Larry Smith.
Yep, it's the Sports IQ. It's what we call it. Larry Smith here. Glad to see you. I was telling producer Tony before we started the show here that I really thought that after the WNBA regular season and our season on the Friday night show on Ion after it ended, like life would slow down. It hasn't. I think I mentioned I was riding jet skis this weekend. I've got a MC an event this weekend, and boy, it's a lot going on. But you know what? Fun stuff. Last night saw the Beach Boys. Brand new park in downtown Lexington, like a Central Park type area, and they've got an amphitheater. Cool stuff. It was pretty cool. Talked to Mike Love, guy's in his 80s, man, still just out there. I talked to one of the guys in the band, and they were just saying how he lives in Santa Barbara. I said, when do you go back home? He goes, never. Like they tour like year round. It's nuts. But think of the money you make, but you can't spend it because you're always on the road. So anyway, let's get to sports, shall we? A couple of great guests as we get ready for football here this weekend. In a couple of minutes here, we have a good friend of the show, Brian Barnhart. He's the voice of the Illinois Fighting Illini. We will talk with him about the big top 25 matchup coming up here in Bloomington on Saturday. He's going to join us in a couple of minutes. Illinois, both these teams 3-0, both ranked. Kind of cool for two programs no more for basketball, right? And then a bit later, we'll talk to producer Tony. He's going to chat with Ray Fittipaldo, and he's going to talk a little Steelers beat writer, get the temperature there in Pittsburgh after a couple of weeks of the NFL season. Big stuff coming up. Lots of stuff next week, tomorrow as well. Again, we talked about the Atlanta Dream executive. Hopefully they get it done tonight and they remember us tomorrow. Hopefully that works out. Also, we'll talk NIL. Our friend Matt Stevens as well, color commentator for UCLA football. Bruins 0-3. What's up in Westwood? So lots going on here to finish out the week. Let's get our Thursday started, though, with the action on the court in the WNBA last night. The Liberty at home, a chance to close out Phoenix after taking game one on the road Sunday. If you remember, Phoenix starter Sadu Sabali shot just 2 for 17 from the field. She vowed to have a better game on Wednesday, and she did. She and teammate Alyssa Thomas each scored 15. Hey, the Mercury routing the defending champs 86-60. They were outstanding on defense, holding New York to just 19 of 63 from the field, just 6 of 26 from deep. Game 3, the deciding Game 3, will be tomorrow back in Phoenix, going cross country for this. Minnesota did what they needed to do. They beat the upstart Golden State Valkyries 75-74, but at one point in the third quarter, this looked like this series would be just like the other 3 in the first round and going to that deciding Game 3 as Golden State had a 17-point lead. But boy, the Lynx came through big in the fourth. Nafisa Collier led the way with 24 points from Minnesota, 10 of 16 from the field. Kayla McBride, 18. Bridget Carlton chipped in with 12. For Collier, though, the go-ahead 18-footer with 1:24 on the clock. She was the star of the night. The Lynx become the first team to punch their ticket to the second round. But let's give a shout-out to the Valkyries. Valhalla, they call it out in the Bay. What a year. They go out in the first round, but again, the first ever expansion team to make the playoffs in year one. And because of that, their head coach, Natalie Nakase, earning WNBA Coach of the Year honors in her rookie season as a WNBA coach. So much to celebrate there in the Bay Area, and another sellout last night. It's just one of the great storybook seasons in league history. So that continues. 2 more games, by the way, tonight in the WNBA. As the playoffs continue, we will see what happens between the Aces and the Storm, the late game, and the Fever and the Dream, the early game. Both those Game 3, the winners advance. College football, well, what had been discussed a couple of weeks ago became official last night. The transfer portal for football will have just one window this year. The NCAA Administrative Committee adopting a proposal to eliminate the spring transfer portal window, moving away from the previous 2-window system that allowed players to submit their names in the portal over 30 days across the winter and spring. Now, it eliminates post-spring movement in the sport. That was a popular option that more than 1,000 FBS players took advantage of this year. Nebraska head coach Matt Rule telling CBSSports.com, quote, "I desperately think one window was better. Basketball has one window, so it's not like we're the first sport to do it. We're just making ourselves whole like the other sports." That's from Matt Rule. So when that window will be is the next subject up for debate. The initial thought it would be January 2nd through the 11th, but there's no official date set last night. The committee said it wants to get feedback from student athletes before setting the final dates in October. Remember, the one thing about football that's unique from other sports is that it crosses over. If you're a playoff team, it crosses over into the next semester. So you've got to have it early enough to where those players transferring can find their new school, get the paperwork done, and enroll for the spring semester. So there you go.
Well, one of the big weekends, big games this weekend. It is thrilling to see this. Producer Tony went back and looked it up earlier this week. 1950 was the only other time that Illinois and Indiana met in football, and both were ranked, and Illinois got the win then. And here we go again. Number 9, Illini against they're at number 19, Indiana. Joining us here once again on the show, a great friend of ours, Brian Barnhart. He is the voice of the Fighting Illini. Brian, we were saying here as we came on the air that you and I both, growing up in the area, we don't get a chance to say things like in September, the top 10 ranked Illini and top 20 game in Indiana. These are foreign words to us.
Yeah, it really is. And if you were saying it was because it was in basketball where you have a big matchup, Lou Henson, Bobby Knight, whatever down the road, and talking about it in football is a little strange. I mean, you think about it, all those years since 1950, the last time the two teams met, and we've had some great games with them. John Paddock led us to an overtime win. They hit Isaiah Williams, right at the end of the game to win the game against Indiana in overtime the last time we played. And Antoine Randall had a great game against Illinois. And so there have been some good ones, but not of this magnitude. And a couple of things that have changed, of course, is the expanded playoffs. So this has a lot of implications for that, possibly winning the Big Ten, I guess, or contending for it. But you're going to have to deal with Ohio State and Penn State and Oregon for that. So it's huge this early in the season. And to have this matchup right now, the way Indiana's playing, now you can argue they haven't really played anybody, which is probably true. But I think they're still really good. And Illinois certainly has had a couple of slow starts, but they've taken care of business in their first 3 games. So there's a lot on the line. And as you said, Larry, pretty unusual for an Illinois-Indiana matchup in football to be the case.
Yeah, how about what Brett Bielema has done here in the 5th year? And like I said, you've been with the program doing it for more than 2 decades. You've been, like you said, 24th year now doing the voice of Fighting Illini. You've seen a lot of coaches come and go. There's something very different I've been saying for quite a while now about Brett Bielema and what he has built here. Obviously, the Citrus Bowl game was big for Illinois, the 10th win of the season. That doesn't happen very often. But it feels like, again, this is like the next biggest game. Because like you said, I mean, everything they've worked toward, all the veteran players coming back, the 3-0 start, the big win on national TV at Duke. But it kind of comes down to this. You need to win this one to kind of contend that ascension that the program hopes that they're on.
Well, one of the things that Brett Bielema talked about when he was hired by Josh was sustained success. They both mentioned that. And that's why I think coming into this year, why the place is sold out, why there's a lot of optimism, because this feels different than, say, the Sugar Bowl team kind of stuck up on people and then won the Big Ten, as you remember. And then it was like, as a fan, or you're hoping, well, hopefully we can replicate that next year. Well, they couldn't. Or the Rose Bowl team in 2007, a lot of things came together. And you remember they still lost 4 games that year, roughly 4 or 5, whatever it wound up being, because they'd struggled a little bit early before they got hot at the end of the year. And so going into 2008, you were optimistic, but you didn't know if they could replicate it. This feels different because they won 10 games. The way that Coach Bielema has built this thing day by day and his approach to things, you look at the roster, how old it is, how experienced it is, how deep it is. That's been the biggest thing we've seen in these early games is how many guys is he rotating through on defense? I mean, it's all over the place. And I was at practice earlier this year. I was like, he's a senior. Wow, he's a backup? Really? And so, that's why this feels different. Like they can rattle off this kind of success and continue it. Now, is it going to be a tough game at Indiana? No doubt. Is it the end of the season if they lose it? No. But, the reason we're in a position to even be talking about Illinois and college football playoff is because of what Brett Bielema has done.
Yeah. I've said this several times. You're around him all the time. I want to get your thoughts on this. He seems different this year. He seems there's a swagger. There's a confidence in knowing maybe it's that he has this roster set the way that he wants it for the first time, the way maybe when they had things rolling in Wisconsin, possibly. Do you sense a difference this year with Brett Bielema? Is that just me reading it from the outside?
Well, I think he's a little more. He's been, chippier, I guess, on social media.
Yeah.
Maybe part of it. He's
They played a bit, yeah.
more confident. I think he knows he's, you think about it, and I didn't realize this till we started the year. Barry Lunny is the longest tenured offensive coordinator in the Big Ten.
Wow.
And this is only his 4th year. So there a lot of turnover in that position. And Aaron Henry is, I think, in the top 4 or 5 in the league on defense. And he, of course, succeeded Ryan Walters. So I think the continuity has been a big thing. The way he put the roster together, the way he's masterfully worked through the transfer portal and picked and chosen the right guys that kind of fit our program the right way. It's been a master class on how to do that. So I think he's confident by nature. I think if you go back early in his Wisconsin days, he would tell you that he was cocky. He was. I mean, he was pretty brash, and he was pretty out there, and he was a lot younger. And so he's matured as an adult with a wife and 2 beautiful young daughters and, a family. And I know that he's been working to get in shape physically. He's done a great job with that. So I think he's feeling good physically. I think he's confident in what he's got. And you're kind of seeing all of that. He's always been an A-type personality anyway, but I think he's done a really good job in a lot of different facets, both professionally and personally.
Talking with Brian Barnhart here. He's the voice of the Fighting Illini, and it's number 9 Illinois at number 19 Indiana here this weekend. Big game, NBC. It's the primetime game, I think on Peacock as well. What has been the big surprise for you? An Illinois team that, again, had the 10-win season, big win over the Citrus Bowl, Bielema tweaking Shane Beamer, of course, not only on the field, but social media, having some fun with that. Strong offseason. So many positives here. But what's been the one big surprise for you with this Illinois team in the first 3 weeks?
Well, it is funny, real quick on the T-bar thing. That's every time I see that now, I see the people in the end zone sticking their arms out like basically.
We didn't pay attention before, right? But now we notice it.
Yeah, now I notice it. I think Shane Beamer. I think Brett Bielema. So that's kind of fun. I think the biggest surprise, maybe it's a little bit of a surprise, but Khalil Valentine, how good he's been, how much he's progressed as the backup tailback. And I know Kerry Davis does the games with me, and he just loves the way he runs, his vision, his cutback ability. Fagan's a different kind of runner, obviously, more straight ahead, bowling ball, gets up ahead of steam, can really knock you over. We saw him carrying tacklers at the end of the game. Probably a little bit just on the side of where they're trying to, I guess, would make Illinois fans a little nervous, is the offensive line is so experienced, and they've had, whether it's technical issues they've had or whatever it is, they've had a hard time keeping Altmaier protected in the first half of games. I don't know. That may be a little bit of a surprise. Now, I know that J.C. Davis at left tackle was injured for a good part of camp, so they shuffled a lot of guys around during camp, moving Priestley from one side to the other. And I don't know if that's it. I don't know if it was the coverage issues they were facing. There's probably people that are better football experts can explain it better than I can. But so that's been a little bit of a surprise. I think not so much a surprise, but I mentioned it earlier, the number of guys they're playing on defense, even at the linebacker spots. I mean, Malachi Hood and Angelo McCollum up front, and just rotating a lot of guys that you may not thought were going to play as much. Tanner Heckel's been a bit of a surprise, as athletic as he is and where he's come from. So those are some of the things but they haven't been. It's almost like, Larry, now we've reached a point, which is odd to say with Illinois football, where people are nitpicking at different. It used to be, we've got a serious problem on this or that. Now it's like, okay, we didn't do this as well as we should have. We haven't reached the point, though. I lived in Oklahoma a few years, and I don't know if you know this, working in the SEC country at times or whatever, but when Oklahoma fans, they were at such a point that if you were supposed to beat a team 60-0, if you only beat them 25 or 30-0, what was wrong with our team? Oh my goodness, we're not there yet, but you do kind of see that sometimes from fans, that they do nitpick some.
Yeah, we were talking about that with Clemson in yesterday's show. And again, a program that's won double-digit games 13 of the last 14 years. And yet you want to get rid of Dabo Swinney? I mean, what really? So, fans can get a little unreasonable. But it's fun to see there, to hear about all the sellouts. And The fans getting excited on social media, everything else. Obviously a big game this weekend, but you've got USC after that. Purdue always gives Illinois fits, and then the big Ohio State game. How good is this Illinois team? Or I guess we'll find out this weekend, but is this a team that can win 3 of the next 4 games possibly and be a part of that conversation in November?
Oh, I think so. I mean, I think the ceiling's pretty high. We had questions, the defensive line, how would they be with the guys from Wisconsin coming in? What about that offensive line? Can they get that, figured out 100% without the slow starts? But if they can figure that out, the ceiling is pretty high, I think, because you've got such a outstanding quarterback in Luke Altmaier and all the things he can do. USC will not be easy. Let's face it. I mean, I'd rather swap them out for UCLA. And USC is going to make, now the thing there is they're making their second trip all the way to the Midwest here after being at Purdue, and they had a long storm delay there in West Lafayette. So we'll see how they're doing and playing at, I guess, 9:00 their body clock time. You're right about Purdue. Purdue looks better to me. They don't look great, but they look better. They look more competitive. And even when they weren't competitive, as you said, they gave us problems in West Lafayette. But I mean, I think Illinois is in a position to win those kind of games now, but we will get a pretty good indication because this will be pretty hostile, tomorrow. I mean, coming up on Saturday night down in Bloomington. The hostile environment. They're feeling cocky. They're feeling good. They've rolled up some big scores. I know the quarterback comes in and just has kind of picked up where the last one left off. So this will not be easy. And like I said, even if they don't win the game, and hopefully they will, but it's not the end of the road, but they're certainly capable of winning several of these games. And then, as you know, the back end of the schedule gets a little more favorable with the teams that are coming to Memorial Stadium and so forth.
Yeah, absolutely. I was really impressed with the second half of the Duke game. It's a close game at halftime. Illinois had some chances, didn't capitalize. Duke offense kind of did what they wanted. The Illinois defense, they bent but didn't break, and that was an advantage for them. But the way they came out in the second half, I think for Illinois fans should say, wait a minute, this is a different team. That's the kind of game that Illinois teams usually in the second half would come out, not play well, and would go home with the L. But instead they came out with I saw somebody saying, well, they weren't given the ball 5 times, they wouldn't have won. Well, there were 5 turnovers, 4 were takeaways. Okay, so now we're nitpicking, like you said. Okay, so if the defense didn't have 5 turnovers, Illinois would. Okay, well, whatever. Want to get your thought very quickly with Indiana. What concerns you about Indiana in this game as Illinois gets ready for it?
Well, just the quarterback and his speed, and I think Mensah was a really good quarterback for Duke, but I think we're talking about somebody that's put up some but what did he go the other night? 19 of 20 or 20?
Yeah,
it was insane what he did, and their speed and their ability to and their culture, just because they brought in the Signetti, whatever you think of him, he brought those guys from James Madison. I think they still had another year for a lot of those guys to play this year, so they're experienced and they have a culture that is in place, and the people that were with him at James Madison brought that to Indiana with them, and so that's the thing. I don't they're not going to blink, and so it's just a really even matchup. I think you've got, maybe 2 teams that are similar in some ways, different maybe in philosophy or whatever. And I know that I think Brett's familiar with their offensive coordinator was at Wisconsin at one point along the way. So, I mean, there's some crossover there. But I just think the atmosphere in Bloomington, which you over the years would never worry about. I mean, that place was always half empty.
Yeah,
it's pretty intense over there now. So that'd be the thing, and just getting off to a better start, as we talked about. Barry Lunny kind of addressed that this week. So if they can do that, they should be in good shape. But I still think what you talked about, bad teams do a lot of the Brett Bielema talked about when he first got, goofy penalties, and and they had a few of those that cropped up in the first half against Western Michigan, which is why his hand was sore at halftime after he apparently slammed it on the clipboard or whatever. Because he said, that's not us. And that's not, as he has been here, we've seen the development of that tough, smart, dependable play with minimal mistakes where you kill yourself, which we saw for, several years. And, the 5 fumbles, but that's what Illinois used to do. We used to, give it up 4 and 5 times and lose the turnover battle. And great teams take advantage of that and make it look easy afterwards.
Well, I know you were telling us ahead of time that this is a unique game for you, not just because of the historical 1950 and the two teams ranked again, but it's the first game of Illinois football you will not be covering. The voice of the Fighting Illini has bigger, better things to do, and we love it. Go ahead and tell us what's going on.
Yeah, well, my oldest daughter, Lauren's getting married this weekend. And so, and it was funny because she told me she was trying to get him on a bye week. And Brett Bielema was kidding me the other day, about, your daughter does know what you do, right? And we talked it over, and I've teased her a little bit, but no, it's her day. And it's a very special day. And I'm thrilled to be the father of the bride. And she's marrying a wonderful young guy. And so, we're looking forward to being down there. It will be weird because I have missed some basketball games because of a conflict over the years because of the way the schedules work, but not missed a football game since I started in September of 2002. This will be my first one to miss, and Scott Beatty will handle it. He'll do a great job and on Saturday night. And then I guess I'll have to tape it and watch it because our wedding's I think the wedding's 2 hours before kickoff. And then we'll be into the reception and all of that while the game gets started. So we'll find out how it went later, but I'll be too preoccupied with all of that to worry about it.
Exactly. Well, listen, congratulations from all of us. We are thrilled for you and your family. And listen, why not let's make it a win when they say I do, and then an Illinois win later. How's that?
That's right. That sounds like a good way to do it.
All right. Brian, my friend, congratulations. Thanks again for your time as always. And we can't wait to talk with you soon.
Thanks, Larry. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks so much. Brian Barnhart, once again, voice of the Fighting Illini. It is number 9, Illinois at 19th ranked Indiana, 7:30 Eastern time kickoff on NBC Saturday night. We'll watch that since we can't watch the Barnhart wedding. So, all right. We've got more to come. Keep it here.
Are you tired of your website making your business look bad? Is your current web developer dropping the ball? Let's face it, if your website isn't making you money, it's broken. Let Neon Rain create a website that turns your visitors into customers. Neon Rain has worked with hundreds of businesses across North America, building custom websites and applications with modern designs that are easy to update and work well on mobile devices. They can do it for you too. What sets Neon Rain apart? They actually deliver on their promises. Call today for a free consultation. 303-957-3092. That's Neon Rain at 303-957-3092. Or visit them at neonrain.com.
You're listening to Sports IQ with Larry Smith.
A little baseball now, and we have a change atop the standings in that wild AL West race. The Astros completing a sweep of division rival Texas last night, 5-2 win. Jose Altuve leading the offense with a 2-run blast. Jeremy Pena added a solo home run for the victors. Seattle had a chance to keep their lead in the division, but they fell 7-5 to Kansas City. That snaps that 10-game win streak. Adam Frazier hitting the go-ahead 2-run homer for the Royals. The only good news for Seattle was Eugenio Suarez snapped an 0-for-32 skid with 4 hits, 2 RBIs, and 2 runs scored. Hey, the Cubbies back in the NL playoffs this season. Ian Happ homered and drove in 3 runs. The Cubs clinched their first postseason berth since 2020 with an 8-4 win over Pittsburgh on Wednesday. Chicago now 4 wins in a row. They've won 7 of 8 overall and leads that NL wildcard standings with an 88-64 record. In the AL Central, Cleveland doing everything they can to make Tiger fans reach for the Tums. Gavin Williams struck out 9 in 5 innings. Bo Naylor hit a 2-run single. Cleveland winning their season best 6 straight games, 4-0 over Detroit. Cleveland, which has now won 11 of its last 12, now just 4.5 games back of the Tigers in the AL Central race. Those teams, by the way, remember, play 3 more games against each other next week. It was the 10th shutout loss of the season for the Tigers. They've now lost 13 of their last 20 games. To add to the interesting intrigue in the AL Central, their magic number to clinch the division remains stuck at 7. Trent Grisham homered twice. Cody Bellinger also went deep as New York beat the Twins 10-5 on Wednesday. Aaron Judge, 3-for-4 for the Yankees to raise his major league leading batting average to .329. The Yankees move within 4 games of first place Toronto in the AL East. They lost to the Rays on Wednesday 2-1. Arizona's Brandon Pfaadt also may need some Tums today. He had a 1-hitter through 9 innings, but got a no decision as neither team could dent the scoreboard until the 11th. Christian Koss, a 2-run double and a 5-run 11th inning. San Francisco over Arizona, 5-1 in a 4-game slide. The Giants, 2 games back of the Mets,
who lost Wednesday to San Diego for that final NL wildcard spot. Arizona, a game and a half behind New York. Some NFL notes now that Washington, D.C. City Council has given its second and final approval for that $3.8 billion project that will include the construction of a new 65,000-seat stadium on the former RFK Stadium site, along with a mixed-use development of the surrounding area. With this approval of the project by an 11-2 vote, they've now cleared the way for the Washington Commanders to return to playing in the district. They have been in Maryland since leaving RFK for almost 3 decades out in Landover, Maryland. But that's going to be changing. They're trying to get this thing done in time for the 2030 season. They want to be a part of the Women's World Cup in 2031. And so now that opens. They may still do a retractable roof. That has not been finalized. They're still dismantling piece by piece the RFK Stadium. They didn't implode it because it's a neighborhood all around it. And for environmental reasons, they chose not to do that. So again, good news. The Commanders returning to D.C. The Jets will not have their starting quarterback when they travel to take on the Tampa Bay Bucks on Sunday. Coach Aaron Glenn ruling out Justin Fields due to the concussion he suffered in the loss to Buffalo. Tyrod Taylor will start instead for the Jets. And listen, Tyrod Taylor is one of my favorite NFL players. Here's a guy who has eked out a career of 15 years, right? He was a rookie back in 2011, 36 years old. A career backup. He's made some starts, but usually he's your number 2 guy. He's your box of Arm & Hammer baking soda in back of the fridge in case you need it. But listen, weep not for Tyrod Taylor. Career earnings, I looked up this morning on sporttrack.com, $82.6 million is what Tyrod Taylor has made as a career backup. That's some good scratch, and you still have your knees once you retire. Awesome. Tyrod Taylor, his career is so old. He was a freshman on the Virginia Tech campus when they had the shooting back in April of 2008 there on campus. I did a story up there for CNN that following September. They were going to play their first game there at Lane Stadium, first game after that tragedy, and he was there in uniform, going through his thing. And I remember it's like, Tyrod, that's an unusual name. And here we are, almost 20 years later, still playing. God love him. All right, more NFL news next. Ray Fittipaldo talking with producer Tony next on the Sports IQ.
My muscles ached. I was tired all the time.
My son had a full-blown asthma attack. It came out of nowhere.
The unsettling thing about some symptoms is
a fever, headaches.
You don't always know what's causing them.
It was Lyme disease from a tick bite.
A reaction triggered by cockroach allergens.
I had West Nile virus from a mosquito.
Threats to your health can come from unexpected places. Mosquitoes, ticks, and cockroaches can make you sick. Get the facts. Visit pestworld.org.
You're locked in to Sports IQ with Larry Smith.
Glad you're here with us here. Thursday, September 18th, almost to the weekend. Let's talk a little NFL right now. Producer Tony has our next guest.
Well, thanks, Larry. And, one of the interesting off-season stories centered around the Pittsburgh Steelers, picking up Aaron Rodgers, making a number of other moves, picking up Jalen Ramsey, looking like they were all in for this year. We're 2 weeks in so far. It's been kind of a little bit of a roller coaster ride. So we wanted to bring in our expert, Ray Fittipaldo, the Steelers beat writer for the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Ray, how's it been there the first couple of weeks in Pittsburgh?
Yeah, it's been interesting, Tony. They going into the season, I think everyone expected the defense to carry the offense until Aaron Rodgers and some of those pieces got more familiarity and more comfortability with each other. But it's actually been the opposite. The defense has really struggled. They gave up 32 points in their first game against the Jets, and then they gave up 31 in the home loss to the Seahawks. So, Aaron Rodgers looks good. The offense struggled a bit against the Seahawks, but the main talking point here in Pittsburgh is how bad the defense is playing. And a lot of people are wondering when the bleeding is going to stop.
Yeah, it was an interesting. I watched some of that Jets game the first week, and it seemed like New York could move the ball kind of at will. Justin Fields was able to get outside the pocket, escape that rush, make some big plays with his legs. Not every quarterback's going to be able to do that, obviously, but they still seem to have that same issue that was at the end of last season, that they just can't stop the run right now.
Yeah, that's the big issue. And when you're not stout up front. It leads to a lot of issues. Listen, Sam Darnold struggled against the 49ers in their opener. I think they only put up 13 points in that game, but he threw for 295 yards. The Seahawks had receivers running wide open because Kenneth Walker in that running game were kind of, forcing the Steelers defenders to respect the running game. So, just an overall bad performance. And like you said, Tony, when teams are able to run the ball on you, it opens up other things. And I think that's what we saw, from the Seahawks on Sunday.
Now, I think the really good news, if you're a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, watching Aaron Rodgers these first 2 weeks, it seems like he's been able to take Father Time and push him away for a little while. He looks in those first two contests like the Aaron Rodgers of old. And it seems like he's already developed some chemistry with some of the offensive pieces there in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, especially that Jets game. They scored 4 touchdown passes, and 3 of those were on play action. He's still one of the best in the NFL with his deception on play action. And he's been pretty good with his mobility out of the pocket as well. There was a play in that Seahawks game, the first drive of the game, really a big missed opportunity for the Steelers. Rodgers felt some pressure. He escaped the pocket, and he threw like a 40-yard dime on the run to Pat Freiermuth. The Freiermuth just was right in his hands, and he dropped it. So Rodgers still has it. He still has one of the best arms in the NFL. The issue for the Steelers offense really has been a lack of a running game. They got to get that running game going. The Seahawks played that, 2 deep safety look. They weren't going to give up any big plays, and the Steelers just weren't able to run the ball. That's why the offense struggled, in the home opener. So if they can get some semblance of a running game going, they got weapons. They got DK Metcalf. I mentioned Freiermuth. They got Jonnu Smith from the Dolphins. Jonnu had a big season last year. So, they are not a team without offensive weapons, but that running game has to get going first.
Where do you think the issue with the running game is? Is it lack of the backs not following the right hole or making the wrong cut? Or is it the offense not being able to get a stout enough push up front? Or is it a communication issue? And we've seen a number of games, both college and pro, where somebody just comes away clean and you're like, nobody blocked him. What's going on up there? Is that the issue in Pittsburgh?
Yeah, I think the biggest issue is they are a young offensive line. But there's a lot of pedigree there. They have 2 first-round picks who are playing tackle for them, Broderick Jones in his 3rd year, Troy Fautanu in his 2nd year. Fautanu actually just really getting his feet wet because he missed all of last season with an injury. So those guys are not really playing up to expectations at this point. Zach Frazier was a 2nd-round pick last year. He's the center. He's playing well, but, there's still that sense that they're young, they're learning on the job, and they're just not quite there yet with that cohesion that you need to have a really good running game. So they've invested a lot of draft resources into the offensive line. I think eventually those guys will develop, but they're not there quite yet.
And when you look, at Pittsburgh overall, and one of the things I think, needs to be talked about is, it seems to me, just watching his on-field performance, I haven't seen any press conferences. I haven't really looked into that. You have. Aaron Rodgers looks like he's having fun. It looks like the game is fun again. I did not see him have any fun in New York, and I know the last year or so in Green Bay was no fun. Does he seem to have been rejuvenated and enjoying the game once again? He seems to be smiling an awful lot.
Yeah, I mean, we heard a lot of stuff, in the media, and I think Steelers fans heard it as well, that maybe he's sometimes just a difficult guy to get along with his teammates. But if you talk to guys in that locker room, they really respect him. Sometimes there's got to be some tough love. He'll tell them exactly what to do or what's going on, but it comes from a good place. And I think all those players respect that. They all love him in that locker room. And you can tell with the coaching staff too, the coaching staff really views him as a leader, as a guy who cares about football, who puts the time in, studies the game. So I have to admit, I had a certain sense of who he was based on his Jets tenure, but I haven't seen any of the negative stuff in the couple of months that he's been here in Pittsburgh with the Steelers.
Going into week 3, you've taken on the Jets and the Seahawks, not the toughest competition yet. How is the schedule playing out for Pittsburgh the next couple of weeks? Do you think they have some spots that they can kind of help right the ship here, before we get into mid-season form kind of deal?
Yeah, I mean, their defense has to get a lot better, but there are opportunities. They play the Patriots in New England on Sunday. The Patriots are coming off a win, but I don't think they're viewed as a playoff contender in the AFC. The Vikings game is after that in Dublin. So they'll be going overseas to play the Vikings, who may or may not have their quarterback available in that game. So, yeah, there's a real chance that they can get to 3-1 at their bye. And I said, Tony, before the season, they probably had to be 3-1 if they wanted to truly be in the race in the AFC, at least for a higher seed. You look at the back half of their schedule: Ravens twice, Bills, Lions, all in the final 8 weeks of the season. The first week after the bye, in mid-October, you get the Browns at home. So there's going to be opportunities to maybe get a leg up in the standings, if not in the AFC North, with the Ravens, at the very least, to keep pace with the other teams in the wild card. Yeah, so this is a real opportunity for the Steelers, but they got to get that defense turned around first. If they don't do that, it's going to be a tough climb for them to win even in New England, which I think is an up and coming team under Mike Vrabel, but they're still trying to put it together as well.
Yeah, I don't think New England is quite ready for the prime time stage. They look like they're putting some nice pieces together there, but they're not quite ready for that jump. What would be a good sign for you from this New England game this week? What do you want to see the Steelers accomplish or do statistically that makes you know, okay, we're getting there, the pieces, the ball is moving in the right direction?
Yeah, it was interesting in the Seattle game. They actually did okay against the run early, but with all the success that the Seahawks had in the passing game, the Seahawks were able to run late on them in the second half. So, if they can get the run defense going a little bit, hold the Patriots under 100 yards rushing, I think that would go a long way toward them winning the game, or at least being in the game. And they got to get tighter in coverage. They got injuries. Starting strong safety Jashawn Elliott is out. Starting corner Joey Porter is out as well. They got injuries all over the defense, especially in that secondary. So it's not going to be easy, but the Patriots with Drake May, like we said, they're still building. I don't know that May has the weapons around him that other quarterbacks in the AFC do. So if they can stay tighter in coverage and they could shut down the run in this game, I think they'll have a chance to win. But like I said, based on what they did against the Jets and the Seahawks, they got to prove me wrong first.
And you are in Pittsburgh. You know the team. You know the culture. You know the fan base. What are you hearing from the fan base? How are they receiving this team after the first 2 weeks? I know home opener losing, they're probably disappointed. But do they see the positives that are happening with everything in Pittsburgh?
Yeah, I think everyone has been pleasantly surprised with Aaron Rodgers. I think there is some potential, with the offense to maybe score a little bit more than they have in recent years. And listen, I know that's a low bar. They've been one of the offensively challenged football teams in the NFL really since 2021 or so. But they have a chance to get better with Rodgers. And maybe it's just because, they're coming off a loss and a home loss where they gave up a lot of yards and a lot of points. But people are really down on this defense now. There's a lot of questions. TJ Watt hasn't had a sack in his past 6 games. They just paid him $108 million guaranteed, in training camp. Cam Hayward coming off an all-pro season. He held out for more money. He hasn't really played all that well. Jalen Ramsey, yes, he had a pick in the Seahawks game, but he also gave up a couple of big plays. So all their highly paid stars, they are the highest paid defense in the NFL. All these stars haven't really played well yet, so I think they're getting the brunt of the blame here from the fan base, at least.
And when you give up 30 points 2 games in a row, that criticism is deserved, right? I mean, they've got to expect that from a fan base that is as passionate. Look, the Steelers travel well in the NFL circles. Everybody knows that. And they are as passionate. NFL fans are passionate, period. But the Steelers, I've got to rank in the top 3 or 4 as passionate fans, right?
Oh, they travel everywhere. And it's not just that they're flying from Pittsburgh to these destinations. There's just a lot of transplanted Steelers fans, who either they grew up here or their parents grew up here and they had to leave the area because the steel industry, went down the tubes. But they're all over the place. You go to games and you'll see it's not strange to see half the stadium filled with Steelers fans, especially when you go to places where the NFL isn't big. I remember a Chargers game a couple of years ago. I think it was 3/4 of the stadium was Steelers fans.
I remember that game. Yep.
The Patriots probably a different story. You'll have some Steelers fans there, but they're a team that usually doesn't sell their tickets. But it's not unusual to go on the road and to see more black and yellow in the stands than the home team.
Last question before I let you go. We've seen the Steelers be ready to make moves, obviously, for this year in this team. As we approach the deadline, NFL trading deadline until the last few years really had been nothing much. You might get one move. Will you think Pittsburgh might try to make a move to help that defense if they can't get some of these things corrected before we hit the trade deadline?
Yeah, they got some salary cap space. And listen, you can look at a number of different areas. You can look for help on the defensive line. Maybe a big run stopper who can come in and help them. Their inside linebacker play hasn't been great, so maybe they would look at an inside linebacker. I actually think they'll be okay in the secondary once they get healthy, but they got to get healthy first. So Omar Khan has not been afraid to make moves at the trade deadline since he's been installed as a GM 3 years ago. So we'll see if that happens again here in 2025.
Ray Fittipaldo, he is the Pittsburgh Steelers beat writer for the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Thank you so much for spending some time with us today and kind of breaking down the Steelers team and what lies ahead for them in the rest of 2025, or at least, the first half of 2025. I'm sure we'll be talking again as the season progresses.
As always, thanks, Tony, for having me on.
Thanks, Ray. Appreciate it. We will take a quick timeout, and the Sports IQ will return and talk a little more football after a break.
Everything is expensive right now. Gas, food, you name it. You're spending more, you are making the same or less money. So, what do? You rack up credit card debt. That's what you do. It's not your fault. It's the economy. And guess what? If you rack up too much credit card debt like some of us, you can't pay your bills. Then the credit card companies, as nice as they are, start hounding you for money. Then you start your downward spiral. A smart thing for you to do is to call the Zero Debt. They can help you consolidate all your credit card bills into one affordable payment. Millions of people have done it. It works to make you debt-free. Make this free call right now. It costs you nothing to learn more.
800-507-7293. 800-507-7293. 800-507-7293. That's 800-507-7293.
Great stuff there with Ray. We appreciate him joining us as he's done more than once here in the show, and we certainly appreciate him taking some time. Producer Tony, we're talking about Washington, D.C. and the Commanders coming back to the district. I don't know if you ever saw a game up at RFK. I saw some D.C. United games before they built their new stadium when I lived in D.C., several years ago. And, that area, here's the thing about D.C., that the problem with the Commanders' current stadium is that there's no public transit access, right? I mean, it's, they do like buses, and you see people like walking down a road for a mile to get to the stadium. You have that now. It's right there, the Washington Armory. There's great history there. I think the first ever NBA game in the district was played there. Great history. It's right again in a neighborhood. It's a fantastic location. So I'm so excited that they've got this thing finalized. They all came together. They didn't let outside distractions get in their way, and this project's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I love it for DC, and RFK Stadium was such a great venue back in the day.
Yeah.
It's kind of sad. I saw some pictures online of what it's become and how neglected it's been, and it's decaying, and it's ready to crumble almost at any second. So it really shouldn't be hard to take down.
Yeah.
It looks like it's doing it all on its own. Nature kind of taking its course there, but it'll be nice to see them back in DC proper, where they belong, where the Washington franchise belongs, make it easier for people in that area to get to the games, enjoy the team, just make it what it used to be. Hopefully, guys, if you're thinking about it, make it a grass field, keep it a grass field there in DC, please. Yeah. We need a few of those in the NFL.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. And, they're going to do, again, the whole mixed use thing. So it's going to be and that's the current thing now. You wonder, why are they replacing some of these stadiums? I mean, I don't know what stadium's called now. What's FedEx Field? I don't know what they call it now. Maybe they do. I don't know. But the Washington's current stadium out in Maryland, Landover, Maryland, that's barely not even 30 years old. But the reason they're replacing all these these not old stadiums with new venues is the revenue you can make retail. You can, even in Atlanta, it's not that the stadium is any larger. Actually, I think the capacity is smaller, but there's a lot more space for retail. And each one of those spots, has a premium dollar. So you're making money just on rent before you even open the stadium. You've got to pay ahead of time for that. So, there's so many positives there. And I just think for the whole area, that region, there's so many great neighborhoods that just have their own charm and personality. And I think this will become another destination, even if you're going to go there, that's on a non-game day.
Absolutely. And those mixed-use stadiums, those mixed-use areas, it's always nice. There's even some in, like the suburbs where you'll see them build something around a town hall, and you've got shopping and restaurants and apartments and townhomes. And that's all great. It's less traffic. You can if you don't want to leave your area, you don't have to leave your area, which these days ain't nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, exactly. It's very cool. Hey, WNBA last night. Great to see Minnesota come through. Sorry for Golden State that you didn't. But that was a fantastic game. It looked like for a while Golden State was going to force a game 3 against the regular season champs. But Minnesota just finds a way. We've seen them all season long. If they're down in the fourth quarter, it doesn't matter. They're going to make a run. And a lot of times, as the record shows, they'll get the win.
Yeah, what I liked about Minnesota last night is there was no panic. There was no getting out of their rhythm. They stayed to what they do. They maintained their composure, chipped away little. When you're a new team like the Valkyries, you haven't been in that pressure cooker before. You kind of get things get a little tight, around that fourth quarter time. And Minnesota just came through showing, why they were the best team during the regular season. They are going to be a tough out in these playoffs.
Yeah, and they've got home court edge now, so they return home. Probably got into the wee hours this morning. Maybe not so wee hours, considering how late they played on the West Coast. But they get the extra day of rest as it's New York Phoenix playing tonight in Phoenix. Those two teams going back and forth cross country, and then one of them now will go to Minnesota next. So they'll be a little travel weary, where Minnesota didn't have all of that travel, which is pretty cool. Hey, tonight, 2 more games. Who do you like? We've got Atlanta hosting Indiana and Vegas at home against Seattle.
I know the Fever, they've been so racked by injuries. I just don't see them getting it done in Atlanta. I think the Dream come through on the home floor. They're too deep. They're too big inside. They should be able to, if they can control Kelsey Mitchell, they probably win this one going away. And I think the Aces have just shown they are too strong. They're coming home. They've got everything in front of them. Look, you don't win 17 games in a row by luck, right? They're deep. They're talented. Asia Wilson is off the charts right now in her play. I think both of the home teams come through and advance into this one, and we're set up for the finals. Depending on what happens with the Phoenix Mercury and New York Liberty. I personally, Larry, I think the Liberty are just about out of gas. They looked drained yesterday. Yeah. The Mercury defense was stifling last night.
Yeah. It is going to be interesting. So again, tonight, the 2 winners tonight, let's just say I'm with you. I think Atlanta and Vegas are my picks for tonight. That series is going to be crazy. If it weren't for Las Vegas and their great win streak, Atlanta also had a strong finish as well. So that would be Atlanta at Vegas in that series, game 1 of that best-of-5 series, should those two teams win. And again, Minnesota waits the winner
of New York and Phoenix. Okay, our moment of awe is next.
Fans of big sports radio and sports spectacular podcasts have a new home on the Chief Sports Network. Find your favorite programs and content all in one place by downloading the Chief Sports app in your mobile device. Created in South Carolina, the Chief Sports Network is the home of an expanding network of live and podcast format programming. It is also the home of one of the leading national college football podcasts, JC and Morgan, hosted by ESPN's Mike Morgan and 24/7 Sports' JC Sherbert. Download the Chief Sports app for free and find all of your favorite programming under one easy umbrella. Thanks to all of our markets for your loyal support of Big Sports Radio and our Sports Spectacular podcast, and we look forward to connecting with you anywhere in the world on the Chief Sports app.
Time now for a moment of awe, and a really cool moment the other night, Tuesday, before the Mets game. Francisco Lindor's wife, Katia, played the violin, performed the national anthem on her violin beforehand. It was cool to see him, and they've got 3 small children there. You know, we're cheering her on the whole time. And then moments later, Francisco goes out and hits a home run. So it was just an amazing, it was all part of the Mets Hispanic Heritage Night, but truly a moment of awe to, we see the players so much. We don't get a chance to see their families and their families' talents, but that was on display there in New York. Truly a moment of awe. Hey, we appreciate our guests stopping by, Brian Barnhart and Ray Fittipaldo. We always appreciate you coming by every day as well. We'll do it one more time tomorrow, and as always, we aim to make it better than we did today. Make it a great Thursday. It's a Sports IQ. We'll see you tomorrow.
Thanks for listening to Sports IQ with Larry Smith, Monday through Friday. Continue the conversation at Sports IQ LS. We'll see you next time.